Hi, everybody, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Zack.
And this is Those Who Conspire. Welcome, one and all, to another fun and exciting edition of Those Who Conspire. As always, I'm Kyle Moody, joined by my erstwhile, lovable, and huggable host, ZTT himself, Zachary Hightower. Zach, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Zach, what is Spooktober here on Those Who Conspire?
It's when we research and do stories on some spooky shit. Here's
Yay!
the thing. I love the dark, spooky stuff. It's my favorite stuff. It gets me so excited. I love it so much. We've already decorated for Halloween. It's not even October yet. I love it. I love this time of year. It's so much fun.
Same. Oh yeah, over here in New England, I'm getting out all the decorations. I'm getting out everything because this year has been a nightmare of a horror show wrapped up in an almond joy, so it's terrible, and I need it to be something that is much better. So I need
almond joy. That's the basis of terrible for you for candy. That's an almond joy.
Almond joy is like riding a roller coaster, and then all of a sudden a swarm of flies come towards you, and you just swallow every single fly. That's an almond joy.
Wow.
It is a roller coaster where you vomit up some insects. Okay, joy.
If you had to eat an almond joy or 3 pieces of candy corn, which one would you do?
I will candy corn is basically cocaine for me at this point since I'm old, all right? So I just eat it and then I see stars.
You're going to be the grandfather who has piles of candy corn in his house year round. And they're like, "What's that, Grandpa Kyle?" That's what they're going to call you, Grandpa Kyle.
I could have been king! I could have been king!
Okay. So this week we're talking about one of the greatest historical American histories of all time, the lost colony of Roanoke. For a second there, I almost made a joke with a different thing and decided not to, which is why there was a long, uncomfortable pause in between that.
Well, since what happened at Roanoke was basically what happened after a long and uncomfortable pause, that seemed very appropriate.
Yeah. Fun fact, at Roanoke, they saw the Mothman. They did not. They did not see that. That is
Zach.
not true. It's just not true. It's not true. I'm not going to make Mothman references.
Oh, please. Okay, I know you. All right, don't stand by what you can't promise. Okay, it's like Mark Wahlberg saying he's not going to do a push-up. All right, let's not do this. All right.
Yeah, that man lives for push-ups. I've never seen anybody else that could do more push-ups than Mark Wahlberg. Just because I think that's what he does all day long.
What is the lost colony on the island of Roanoke? Well, in 1585, English settlers reached the New World and established a colony on the island of Roanoke, in what is now part of North Carolina, only to mysteriously disappear in 1590. The colonists' fate has become one of American history's most enduring mysteries, and the settlers, having disappeared, left behind only 2 clues: the words Croatoan carved into a fort's gatepost and crow etched into a tree. And from this is born America's first conspiracy theory. So let's go. Zach, what do you know about Roanoke?
Well, I will say I didn't know how to pronounce Croatoan until right now. I thought it was like Croatoan. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not even high. That doesn't make sense at all. I don't know much. To be honest with you, I did a bunch of research, but I accidentally found the solution because apparently, not the solution, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And you know how I am about I need to not know the ending of something to really super enjoy it, and I just ruined it for myself, just right on the front. And I was like, oh, okay. I know that there was a bunch of them. What was there, like 150 people or something like that?
Yeah, you're looking at around 115 settlers that arrived in the colony.
115.
Yeah. And later in 1587, it was decided that John White, governor of the new colony, would sail back to England in order to gather a fresh load of supplies. Just as he arrived, however, there's a major naval war that breaks out between England and Spain. The Queen Elizabeth I, she calls on every available ship to confront the mighty Spanish Armada. White finally returns to Roanoke in 1590. He'd left his wife and his daughter, his infant granddaughter, whose name was Virginia Dare. She's the first English child born in the Americas, and the other settlers 3 long years before. White found no trace of the colony or its inhabitants apart from those words carved into the posts. So, what happened to Roanoke? No one knows. I mean, there's going to be an answer coming in here later, but first we're going to get into some spooky stuff. The reason we have such a strong imagination for this is because they disappeared. Zach, this gets to my fears, okay? I am terrified of getting lost. In the world 2021, I don't go anywhere without a GPS. I don't go anywhere without a smartwatch that also has GPS. I don't go anywhere without a phone that also can necessarily get a signal. If I go into a grocery store and all of a sudden my phone signal goes off, I'm like, this Trader Joe's has just become colonized by me! And then I, come back out after I have the Tom Hanks Castaway beard, and I'm like, well, that was weird. But, that's me. I can't imagine what these settlers went through as literal pioneers.
Oh yeah, no, I would never be able to do it. We've discussed on the show how much I hate the forest, or being in a place where there's lots of trees, and not a city. That bothers me on a very basic level. So I can't imagine just moving to a new place and be like, I'm gonna live in those trees, and then you do that, and then you disappear and are never seen again. The crazy thing about Roanoke was the fact that all of the structures had also been completely disassembled and were no longer there.
Right.
It was almost as if the island had never been inhabited, except for the fact that there were carvings in a tree and on a fence post. But there were no bodies found, there were no skeletons, there were no signs of a struggle. I mean, I don't know if they looked for flood damage back then, but I mean, I have a theory on what happened, but I'm not going to say it right now because let's get into some spooky shit. All right, so now that we've got the premise down, what's your favorite fun conspiracy thing for it?
I have about 12. All right, because we're not a history.
All right, go.
All right, so let's go get into this real quick. The first thing that we need to see is that they tried to go back to England, which makes sense, right? They wanted to go back and they failed. One of the most obvious theories has been that once they realized the dire situation that the settlers were in, those colonists simply attempted to try to make their way back home to England, only to end up lost at sea. Possibly very common. So the nature just necessarily wipes them out. The second one is that the battle between Spain and England might have also reached the United States because Spanish troops were also situated south of Roanoke in Florida. So it's not unreasonable to think that they might have been sent as a group to take out the colony as an act of war. Here's a conspiracy that seems apropos given that we're recording this in 2021 and we're all still inside our homes. They died of infectious diseases. Various Native American tribes in the area claim to see evidence of the colony fighting against itself, leading many to wonder if a disease or plague caused the residents' mental health to suffer. Could have led to intense and violent paranoia where they destroyed themselves. What have you got as some of your theories?
I mean, it's just the fun ones. Cannibalism.
Yeah.
Maybe they were running out of food and they had to start eating each other. Maybe they were slowly picked off one by one by a Native American tribe around there because you know what? They didn't have good relations with them. They really didn't.
Yeah, there was a theory that they were murdered by Chief Powhatan, who's also known as the father of Pocahontas. He allegedly confessed to John Smith that he was responsible for the execution of an entire colony, likely referring to Roanoke. The John Hopkins magazine have concluded that Powhatan was probably stretching the truth to seem more impressive. But, it was just the glory days when you could lie about murdering somebody and, you know what, get away with it. Okay. Let's also talk about Croatoan for a second. There's some suggestions that they did join the Croatoans who lived on an island south of Roanoke went by the same name as their tribe. According to reports from the History Channel, researchers did find evidence that the settlers integrated themselves with the tribe, perhaps even broke off to join other tribes on the mainland. This is something that we'll come back to. But it's Halloween, so it's time for some witches. The Croatoans may have executed them as witches, according to some of these conspiracy theories. See, the tribe believed witches could inhabit both men and women. That there isn't much evidence to support it, there are theories that they sentenced the colonists to death after suspecting them of witchcraft.
Wait, aren't they like skinwalkers or something like that? What's the term for that called? Wendigo? Wendigo, right?
Yeah, the Wendigo, which is part of a fantastic college story that I have to share at some point too.
I'm sorry. You have a Wendigo story?
Oh my God.
When the fuck were you going to tell me that? I don't even care that I cursed. When were you going to tell me you had a Wendigo story? Like, that's something I need to know on day one.
This happened whenever we were at Western Kentucky. Do you remember when I would call out to my friends with the Colossus roar from X-Men, the arcade game?
No, I don't remember that. Why would it know?
Well, okay, so we were all playing X-Men, the arcade game, and we would get together and just, like, imitate Colossus turning into, like, his power going, "Whoop!" And then we would do that. But because we didn't have cell phones the way that we do now, because they were largely used for emergencies, we still needed to find ways of getting together circa 2003, circa 2004. So on Western Kentucky University's campus, when classes were over, we were trying to figure out where people were, one of us would just go out the, and then somebody elsewhere on campus would say the, and then be like, oh, we're supposed to meet Jake down at the dining hall. And that's how we would do it, okay? And so the reason I bring up that...
You just had, like, the most primitive walkie-talkies.
It was basically primitive nerd walkie-talkies. It was basically a gigantic bubble of virginity that followed us wherever we went. But one of the things that I really appreciated from it was... the Wendigo was in the X-Men arcade game. Of course, Wendigo being where you first see Wolverine in Incredible Hulk number 181. Pulled that from memory. And in there, you would hear them go, Wendigo, Wendigo, in the game. So we would sometimes just show up and go like, Wendigo, Wendigo. And this continued all through 2007, 2009 with my buddies from my master's program. Yeah, anyways, Wendigo. Killed the colonists at Roanoke.
I thought you like fought a Wendigo or something. What? I was like, what? Why would you never mention this? That's so crazy.
Zach, I'm talking about like using X-Men the arcade game as a communications medium, and you're the one that's like, he fought like skinwalkers?
Oh, man. That'd be a good story, though. You know how mad I'd be at you if you were like, yeah, I fought a Wendigo one time, but I was like, Bigfoot, and you're like, I don't exist. I'd be like, dude, you fought a Wendigo. Like, what are you even saying?
As far as you know, I have never fought a white creature of the night. That is a member of Alpha Flight. Why do I know this?
Well, I love the idea of the colonists being executed because they're witchcraft. That's fun. I mean, I don't love it. You know what I mean by that.
I do.
That's going to be the only quote that's pulled and used against me in like 15 years. It'd be like, Zach said it was really cool that they got killed.
I look forward to you being canceled over the lost colony of Roanoke.
God, I've made so many worse jokes over the years.
I know, many of them on this pod, and they have not been aired.
Yeah, some of them I've cut. The audience will never know. There are jokes that I make where I say it out loud and go, oh, no, I can't do that. I can't say that. It's just a reaction. And every single time, I'm going to say, every single time, Kyle, you laughed. You thought they were funny. I'm just throwing that out there.
I'm a man that now currently lives in Massachusetts. I'm not made of stone. I am made of Sam Adams. And thus, I find some of this humor pretty funny, too. But it's also just, like, a question of course, what is appropriate on a podcast in there and whatnot. So, yeah, I apologize for you all not getting your flagon of chuckles that you're all deserving of. At some point, when we get our pop culture one, we might be able to go in and do that.
Here's the thing. I have a theory. I think the audience wants a little bit of darker fare from us.
Are we talking like darker Renaissance fare?
No, God, Renaissance fare. No, what are we doing? No, that's just less geeky cosplay. No, look, or maybe more geeky cosplay. Actually, I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I corrected that. At least like Marvel's like mainstream now, you know.
Exactly.
But no, listen, listeners. If you want old Hightower to start making darker jokes, old ZTT to start making darker jokes, hit us up on social media. Send us an email at thosewhoconspire@gmail.com. And those are the only plugs I'm going to do right now in the middle of the show. That's all I got. That's all I got. I don't know.
I really appreciate your willingness to do this, too. If you want Zachary Cat Daddy Hightower to push boundaries and scratch your back like a clothes shedding Idris Elba would, then please, by all means. Right. It from Cats. It should be
Cats
said.
reference?
It
Yeah.
is a Cats reference, okay?
It does not need to be said. It was obviously from Luther. Come on.
Oh, God. Clearly, the Suicide Squad was the thing that influenced me. God. Okay. Look, if you want to reach out and have Zachary Taylor Thomas share some darker humor here, then give old ZTT the FCC go-ahead and let us know at thosewhoconspire@gmail.com. Reach us on Facebook and at Twitter at ConspireWho. You can also send hate mail to me at Kyle is Moody for being the wet blanket of the show.
No, you're not the wet blanket of the show. Look, just some things I shouldn't say out loud. Let's be real. I can think them. I'm joking.
God,
Yeah, I'm going to take that out. Do you? Okay, so the Roanoke tribe thing. When I was young, like before I knew anything about the real world, the MTV show. Joking, the actual real world. I always assumed like it was like aliens or like some type of like wormhole or something opened up and they were just gone forever. But in reality, I looked it up and everybody who went searching for them tried to go over to the Croatoans. They tried to go over to the Croatoans and pretty much every single time they were like, yeah, the weather's too bad, we can't reach it. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's the reason that the mystery has endured for hundreds of years, because y'all didn't want to sail? Is that the whole thing?
Well, but again, changes in transportation and communication have shifted how we view space and time in there too. But it's also in some ways flattened out a lot of these wild stories. Like one of my favorite ones that came up is that the Roanoke colonists were turned into trees. All of it came from this idea that Croatoan was the thing that was etched onto a tree. But again, obviously, they don't have working paper that is necessarily available for them to use because of the limited supplies. It's kind of hard to be like, hey, John White, BRB, LOL, K thanks, bye, 3 years later in 1587. So, of course, stories like that emerge because Croatoan etched onto a tree. And leads people to believe the tribe somehow mystically turned all of the colonists into trees.
I like how the only reason that the tree thing came up is the median that the word is written on. That's it. That's the only... Like, if they would have drawn it in dirt somehow, they'd have been like, they all got turned to dirt. And you're like, oh, okay, that's how things work, I guess, now.
Yes, but how many people believe in divine miracles by seeing the visage of Jesus Christ emerge on things from loaves of bread to paintings on the wall? It is though there is divine imagery that is necessarily put on there. And because of our long-standing belief in religious iconography, we in the United States have an overwhelming sense of the supernatural, including people being turned into trees.
Okay.
One other theory that comes up is that the entire colony was possessed by one of the evil spirits that the Croatoans allegedly believed lingered around the island. And so, yeah, devil possession, here we go. And what do these colonists do whenever they're possessed? Others claim that some folks wondered whether they were the victims of witchcraft that caused them to disappear. Logical scenarios that dictates that. Here's something that also comes up too, and it's actually a more plausible scenario. Some anthropologists believe Sir Francis Walsingham, Queen Elizabeth I, Secretary of State, made sure the colony would become stranded in a plot to discredit Sir Walter Raleigh, who funded the entire operation to Roanoke. He's known as the Queen's golden boy, so Sir Francis might have wanted to take him down a peg by foiling his grand plans, even at the cost of others' lives. So basically, it was, we don't want these colonies to exist. That, I mean, seems credible on its surface, but the logistics of taking these things on, it's pretty mind-boggling, especially when you're separated by a massive body of water.
Yes, but let's just dive down this rabbit hole because this is a fun little conspiracy. So, when did you said the Spanish had an embargo, or?
So there was a war between the British Empire and the Spanish Empire, and so there was a massive battle for them for resources, including claims to the New World, which of course, people fighting over which parts of the land that they want to own remotely is actually now such an American part of ideology that it has to come from somewhere. So, but anyways,
who declared war?
I don't even remember. I'm gonna look that
Well,
up.
if it was the British, I gotta say, that'd be a good cover-up. That'd be a good way to make sure that old Riley doesn't get back in 3 years. I'll tell you that.
Yes, to declare an entire war. What is this, like 15th or like 14th century Wag the Dog? Seriously, it's just
What is this, 2002? What is this? Come on, like, people declare war for no reason, Kyle. That's not weird.
Okay, I apologize for having humanity, but nonetheless, I want to bring up this whole point of, hey, there's something that's interesting here, because this leads into political ramifications and sabotage. And also, logistically, it's difficult to pull off sabotage from another spot, but if you're inside the land and you have a space in there, and you can necessarily be a saboteur, that necessarily works. Consequently, this partly inspired Lost Season 1. So there's a conspiracy theory right there for you.
Did it really? Roanoke inspired Lost?
I really wish it would have. Damon Lindelof, if you're listening to this, because what else do you have to do? Feel free to get back to me on this too.
Well, okay, that was a really good theory. I was like, oh shit, that's cool. I didn't know that, but it totally makes sense though.
And that's one of the things about conspiracy theories, right? It has to be something that makes sense. Zach, there's one other conspiracy that I haven't talked about. Do you want to take it regarding why the colonists disappeared?
No, because to be honest with you, we went over the only ones that I know. So what's the last one? I'm so curious.
Aliens.
Ah, yeah, boy.
I knew you would like it.
Here's the thing. I I love the idea of aliens coming down and they're like, hey, what are all those white people doing down there? Like, 'cause they're just on an island in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by people that don't look like them. The aliens are like, we need to take all of them. They don't belong here. I love that idea of them just pulling them all up. Wait, what part of the alien thing are you talking about specifically? Are you talking about abductions? Are you talking about, did they do experiments? Please tell me about the experiments if they did.
Well, they turned them into trees, apparently, is the experiment. No, it's abduction, right? It's this, they were taken by aliens, is this massive conspiracy theory that people have. The reality, not aliens, right? I mean, let's just get this out of the way. Roanoke and the disappearance of the colonists happened so long ago and captures our imaginations because it's one of the first real American stories, and conspiracies emerge as a result of not knowing. But we're going to throw some cold water on this because now archaeologists have uncovered new evidence suggesting what happened to the survivors. And Zach, you were the one that researched this, so I'd like you to talk about that.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, it was just as simple as they probably left because they I don't know why they left, but they ended up joining another tribe about 50 miles south.
Well, how they get there is really interesting. Were you looking at the first colony foundations and their archaeological discoveries?
Yeah, but I only looked at I only found like the pottery and stuff. I don't know. What else do you know?
I mean, it's essentially the pottery, and then 50 miles west, you've got some different forts that people moved to right there. The possible settlement was close to a Native American village called Metaquim, typical of early European settlements. So let's talk about the pottery in there. What'd you find that was really interesting? Because there's actually scientific ways that we can look at the world and thus understand it better. The fragments come from vessels used for food preparation and storage, which suggests the presence of long-term residents. This was a search that continued in December 2019 at what's been dubbed Site Y. yielding many more fragments of ceramics from different parts of Europe. So, ceramics from Europe, indicating where the colonists necessarily come from.
Well, why couldn't the people in that area at that time have just taken those pottery? Well, why couldn't that have happened?
Well, I mean, the experts haven't ruled out the possibility that the artifacts may have been left behind by colonists from Jamestown, founded in 1607. Notable is a lack of English pipes. These were ubiquitous among Jamestown settlers, which suggests that the ceramics date from an earlier period, so before Jamestown, which was founded again in 1607. So these excavations are beginning to tell us where the colonists went to live and how they tried to survive in the New World. Now, an archaeologist for East Carolina University, who goes by the name of Charles Ewan, says that they are skeptical because it says that they're trying to prove rather than seeking to disprove their theory, which is the scientific way. Another theory about the colony is that the settlers moved to Croatoan, hence the apparently not so cryptic note. Scott Dawson, who's the co-founder of the Croatoan Archaeological Society, told a newspaper that Birdie was the heart of enemy territory, and that it's the last place they would go. The colony literally wrote down that they relocated to Croatoan. Now, Dawson's published a book called The Lost Colony and Hatteras Island, which detailed the findings of the Society's 10 years of excavations at Hatteras Island, led by Mark Horton, an archaeologist at the University of Bristol in England. And the historical evidence, including the handles of, say, an Elizabethan rapier that was found on Hatteras Island, says that that's where they went.
Wait, but once again, like, why couldn't that sword have just ended up in that place? Like, why does an old artifact mean that an entire colony moved?
Here's the thing that Jamestown Rediscovery President and First Colony Board member James Horn said in his statement. Possibly a small group went to Croatoan Island in the fall or winter of 1587 to wait for John White to return, while the remainder moved inland, and possibly assimilated into the tribe of Birdie, and how they all necessarily came together. We may never know their ultimate fate, and that's because there's always contrasting, conflicting evidence. It's as though, again, they're seeking to prove it as opposed to trying to disprove this in there. And because records are so scarce, we have to think about this too. The reality is more likely the assimilation is exactly what happened, and so we begin to see the colonists of Roanoke move into there. But because we weren't there, and because we have sometimes fears of survival, especially in these bleak instances, we can begin to speculate as to what happened. And our minds always go to dark places where that's necessarily fertile. I loved revisiting this for Spooktober. It's kind of like imagining yourself camping out in the woods without, having to leave my computer.
No, I don't want to do that. I like watching horror movies in the comfort of my own home with a joint in my hand.
Wow, okay, so if you can necessarily find an English pipe, then congratulations, you are one of the lost colonists of Roanoke, and you have just been transplanted there as a tree person. A smoking tree person.
A smoking tree person. Yeah, that's straight from the Two Towers at that point. Look, if, what? What's that? Oh, no, you're a big Lord of the Rings fan, right? Yeah.
I am, yeah, so I'm enjoying this discussion right here, and I know from some of the listeners of my end of the pod that we have some dedicated Lord of the Rings fans in our listener base, so we're throwing some meat for them, some deep red meat.
Some deep red second and third breakfast meat? I don't know. I'm not good at Lord of the Rings references. I'm terrible about it.
It's 20 years since Fellowship of the Ring came out, Zach. And I don't think our students have watched it.
Oh, probably not. They've probably seen all the Harry Potter movies, which also came out 20 years ago.
All right.
Yeah, I know, right? I did the same thing. I figured it out like 3 days ago, and I was like, oh no, I'm dying. It's just my first thought, and it's over.
I like how we say that, and we still have 40 years left to go. Come on.
I have to start getting regular prostate exams. What's wrong with me? Sorry, I promised the audience I was never going to go brown, but here we are.
Ah, God.
That was terrible. I'm leaving it in. Okay. I know there's another joke in there. I'm not going to make it. So here's the thing. So Roanoke, super interesting, but to be honest with you, they probably did just assimilate. I found other like historical records and stuff. I searched through a library like Indiana Jones. No, I did a Google search, and I found that there are historical records of people coming from England and seeing like white, like waspy type of Native Americans, and they were confused by that for like 20, 30 years afterwards. So my theory is that they just assimilated. Like that's what happened, and they just made a new life.
Yeah, it's the Occam's razor in effect. How you see people essentially have the simplest explanation is often the most correct one, and that's fair. But I do think that, again, there's a lot of romance to it. But Zach, can we put a capper on Roanoke, then? Well, here's one more thing that I'd like to tease. What if they didn't assimilate? What if they moved to areas and became their own people in what are now national parks? What if, Zach, instead of this being its own episode, it's part 1 of feral people in national parks?
Mm-hmm. That's right. We're doing feral people next week. I am super excited about it. I've been doing so much. I've actually been doing more research about the feral people than I did on Roanoke. I did 20 minutes of research on Roanoke, and I go, well, this seems pretty straightforward. This is like, you know what I mean? Like, that's sad. I'm never telling the audience how little research I did for this episode. I'm going to take that out. Only you're going to know that. You can be disappointed in me, but not the audience.
I appreciate that. Look, it's one of those things that I also have been researching, and I'm totally curious about, because I think this is going to be one where we fight about this, too, based on believability in there, too, because I think this is going to be our first real X-Files episode, when we talk about things like Dennis Martin and his disappearance and what it means for the audience. I'm actually looking deeply forward to that one. But I'm going to try to make the case that the Roanoke settlers disappeared and became the feral people in Appalachia, okay? We can do this, Zach. Let's do it, just for narrative continuity.
I'm so excited. This is part 1. Part 1! Why not? I like it. Part 2 coming next week. Or the week after. I don't know. We'll see how fast I edit. I don't know.
Spooktober, folks. We're happy that you listened. So that was the Lost Colony of Roanoke. More and more scientists are finding information out about it, but the central mystery at it largely remains unresolved. So we're going to continue to explore this, and if you have things that you'd like to cite and tell us about the Lost Colony of Roanoke, or you just like to hear ZTT off the leash, Dennis Rodman in the 90s style, then please email us at thosewhoconspire@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook and also find us on Twitter at ConspireWho. If you'd like to reach out to any one of us and tell us how you were turned into a tree, you can reach me at KyleIsMoody on Twitter and on Instagram, and you can reach us at Zach, at Zach_Hightower at Twitter and at Real Hightower on Instagram. We love to hear from you. We thank you so much for joining us through Spooktober. We're just getting started with the scares. Join us next week when we tell you what really happened with Yogi Bear and Boo Boo in the national parks. Until next time, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Zach.
And thank you for listening.